Hey guys, this is Jaden from the Super Gamer Bros. I'm just leaving a little spoiler warning here because we realized shortly in that we talked about basically the entire plot of the game, at least a summary of it, before giving a spoiler warning. So if you haven't played the game yet and want to, you don't know the story, then I would highly recommend not listening to this until after you've done so. And then you can hate or love us for our opinions whether or not you agree or disagree. Alright, enjoy the episode. Hey everyone, I'm Jaden.
And I'm Noah.
And we are the Super Gamer Bros. And this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast. We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and talking about games, so that's what we do. So, today we are kind of different than our normal kind of layout of our episodes. We're talking about The Last of Us Part 2. Like I said, there are some different things about this episode. One, normally we kind of talk about the story, the characters, and go through everything in the game. This game, since it's so new, and we've never even talked about it before, because I refuse to talk about it with you, it's more of a kind of a review, like our reviews of it, than normal.
I'd call it that. I'd still call it it's as much of a gameplay overview as we can scrap up after one or two playthroughs for you guys. And I say guys because
The second thing we were changing up about this one
that's right.
is we have a guest today.
Hey guys, I'm Kyle.
Yeah, so basically, backstory of Kyle is
The backstory of Kyle.
the backstory of Kyle. Noah met Kyle from working with his brother, and then I met Kyle when Noah asked if he could, and I let him join our D&D group. And due to the fact that Kyle always shows up early and everyone else always shows up late, it would be basically just me and Kyle there for a while. And so we just talk about stuff like D&D. And then through Noah, I knew that The Last of Us is one of his favorite games. Maybe, is it your favorite game of all time?
Oh, of all time.
Oh, of all time, so it is. And it's one of my favorite games. I don't know if I would say it is the number one, but it is at the very least in the top 5. So with The Last of Us Part 2 coming out, recently, like in the near future, we would talk about it a lot. And after finishing it, I was very interested to hear Kyle's opinions on it, and decided let's go ahead and just include him in this conversation. So yeah, you guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, first, I feel like, normally when we talk about the story of the games, we kind of go through it and give our feedback to certain moments at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
But this game, I feel like instead we should just do a quick summary of the story, and then afterward just kind of go over everything about the game in general.
Mm-hmm.
Not really any type of specific order to this. It'll kind of be like mainly just kind of the topics as we come across them.
Right. So I'll start.
So you want to start with a summary?
Yes, and I will say that the first half of the game is my favorite part of the game. The first half of the game, you start out in Jackson as Ellie, and Joel's there, and everybody's having a good time. And then these strangers come up and kill Joel because he killed all the people back at the hospital and took Ellie 4 years prior. After that, you play as Ellie, who goes to Seattle to track down the people who killed Joel. She spends 3 days there and finds Abby, the girl who is the person who killed Joel. And then the game cuts to black, and you start the 3 days in Seattle over as Abby, and you learn her side of it in the second half of the game. After playing as Abby and going through her insane story, you get back to the point where Abby runs into Ellie, and they fight, but you're fighting against Ellie as Abby. And then Abby wins and lets Ellie go and lets Dina go too. And I guess Tommy. That's a whole thing we'll get to.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to sometime in the future. Dina's baby is born.
I would say it's been at least a year, if not more.
Maybe you're right about that.
Because the baby looks like
Right.
decently old enough that I'm like, she was very recently pregnant, and then the baby is, I would guess, months, if not at least a year old.
Right, and then so Ellie is having this happy life on the farm with Dina, and she has PTSD and remembers Joel and has nightmares and decides she can't take it, and so she goes back to kill Abby. And when she eventually tracks her down and rescues her from another precarious situation Abby has found herself in, they fight to the death, and then Ellie lets Abby go, and they part ways again. And then she goes back to the farmhouse, and it's empty, and that's the end of the game. All in all, with that synopsis, like, did we like that story?
I um
By the way, spoilers.
yes, we did not say that at the beginning. There are a lot of spoilers in this episode. I'll probably
That'll
put
come
some,
out in the cutting.
I'll probably put something in there to make it. Yeah, this game has a lot of spoilers. So, first off, I think really I want to talk about the story last because I feel like that's most of what we'll talk about.
Mhm.
Is the story, our reactions to it, how we felt about it.
All right.
So first, the game takes place mainly in Seattle. I've never been to Seattle, so
No.
I can't
It looks
really.
terrible.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm
Right?
not
Yeah,
impressed.
it looks
I'm not
terrible.
impressed after playing this game. I don't think I'd want to go there. Like city's half flooded, it's covered in trees.
Right.
I do think though they did say that the military like dropped bombs on
They
Seattle.
did,
They
yeah,
did say
that was
that
part of it.
because
Yeah,
of the
because of
undead and a little bit because of the
Rebels.
WLF.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they wanted to take out rebels and dead. Very good looking. I like once again not knowing much about it. It looked legit. Like it's the same of in the first game. You take on the hunters in Pittsburgh. I didn't know anything about Pittsburgh, but the recreation of Pittsburgh was good enough that my girlfriend, who was from Pennsylvania, walked in on me playing the game and was like, "Oh, that's Pittsburgh."
Huh.
And I was like, "Yeah, I know it is. I forgot about that."
That's funny.
Yeah. So, I definitely think it's probably a good recreation at the very least. Like, yeah, I could be like, "Yeah, that's Seattle." You know.
It had the needle.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, they knew.
You get so far in that game before the needle was a thing that I was surprised by it. I expected the needle to
I
be
didn't
mentioned
think they were
so
going to
much
talk
earlier.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, then you have basically the characters of the game, which obviously being a Naughty Dog game, the characters are always a big part of this game.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have the main two that you play as. There's Ellie, who everyone loves Ellie, returning from the first game. Then there's Abby, who is completely new to this game.
Mm.
And basically, her story is she was at the hospital when Joel killed everybody. Her dad was actually the doctor that was going to perform the surgery on Ellie and develop the vaccine, so he was killed by Joel. And from that point on, she spent her entire life just dedicated to bulking up, becoming strong, and eventually finding and killing Joel.
Yes, I felt like that was a little shoehorned. Like, I think we spoke about this, and I might have spoke about this to you as well, Kyle. But I have said to multiple people that I believe the story would have just stuck to landing so much more for me if Abby had nothing to do with the hospital and anything in the first game, and it was like something Joel did in his past before Ellie, catching up with him. Then I feel like I would have respected it more with it being like, oh, it's her dad that was the doctor, and I'm like, has such a prevalent presence in these cutscenes, but she's never mentioned in the first game. You know?
I mean, to me, I kind of felt the opposite about it because, especially with Joel dying as very early in the game, to me, it wouldn't have been as entertaining for us to discover Joel's history of these people without Joel himself there to either inform Ellie about it or, at the very least, kind of deal with his maybe regrets he would have himself. But, and as for her not being mentioned in the first game, I mean, there are a lot of Fireflies not mentioned in the first game. Like, the Firefly, the only Firefly that's really important enough to be named in the first game, I guess, too, would be Marlene and Tommy. All the other ones are just Fireflies. But again, like Joel kills a lot of them, but he doesn't kill everyone, and they end up disbanding because of that. So to me, it was obvious that there would be people who would absolutely hate him because of that.
Yeah, I understand that aspect. Like the part of Fireflies coming after him, that I understand. It's just the fact that this doctor has a daughter who suddenly appears, but was somehow at the hospital the entire time, but never seen and never mentioned. And, that part there is the only part. They were
Well,
just like, we need a character that kind of relates to Ellie. Is about the same age, but looks a little different and has a similar reason for going after
well,
Joel.
see, to me, I
You
think
know?
I think it's also when you play as her in the flashback with her dad, she's not like a fighter. She's just a person there. So it makes sense to me that she wouldn't be in the
No, she
hospital
was a
patrolling.
fighter. They had training and stuff.
Like I think basic training, but like she wasn't one of the people who would be guarding the hallways and stuff like that. Like to me, she was more of like some basic training, but to me, I feel like maybe her place in the Fireflies was just her dad was like the most important doctor alive, and she's his daughter. I don't think she had a role in the Fireflies really.
It was always a stretch to me how they tried to tie the two together. Because I've said in the first game, that first Doctor, I never blinked an eye. I always killed him, never blinked an eye. So the correlation of how they tried to make us feel bad
Mm.
that that the first Doctor was her dad, and so they try to make you automatically feel a little empathetic for Abby.
Mm.
I never did.
Yeah.
I never did.
I would say it felt just a little forced. Had they introduced her even in the slightest way, like a throwaway line in the first game to, create her before this game's out, then I might have felt bad.
Well,
I
I
might have
think
connected more.
well, I think the simple reason for that is she didn't exist before the story of
Exactly.
this game.
That's what I'm saying. It's shoehorned in there, and
Well,
it's a little
I think
obvious.
a lot of sequel stories you could argue that same thing because when they created the first game, they didn't have I don't even know if they had a sequel planned, but if they did, even if they were like, yeah, we're making a second one, I guarantee they didn't have a story or anything like that. So to me, it's like, yeah, I can understand it. I do think making her dad the doctor, that's the one thing that I'm like, okay, that to me is a little because her just being a Firefly, I could still see her being super mad at him and stuff because all the rest of the people in her group were.
Right. I mean, like he really like fucked over humanity as
Yeah,
a whole. And
yeah,
anybody who knew about it had the right to be
yeah.
mad at him.
And it's even like he killed a lot of Fireflies. Her dad could have been any one, and
Mm.
I would still understand her being super mad.
Right. Of course.
So it's just like I guess that added thing of her of like, oh, also her dad was like the guy, the most important guy. That kind of made me be like, okay,
Okay.
okay,
Right. Anywho, back to the characters.
yeah. So and then this game, we talked about the protagonist, we talked about the antagonist. This game to me, it's really weird considering when you start the game, Abby is the antagonist, but then you play as her, which
She's
to
still the
me,
antagonist.
well, to me that goes against my very definition of the antagonist. Because to me, using protagonist, antagonist in their definition, the protagonist in a video game is the person you play as. The antagonist is the person who's against you. But when you play as both of them, I'm like, I guess if anything, they're both because you play as both of them, and the main antagonist to Ellie is Abby, to Abby is Ellie, kind of unknowingly.
I feel like that's what they were going for. Like
Oh,
in a sense, they was like everybody in their own story is their own protagonist,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else looks at them as the antagonist.
I very much thought that, especially with, I mean, even at the end of the first game, I didn't finish that thing and oh yeah, Joel's a great guy. No, he kills a lot of people very much for his own selfish desires.
Right.
And that's why, when Abby killed him, I was upset about it because I didn't want Joel to die. But at the same time, I'm like, I was mad at her, but at the same time, I'm like, well, not even knowing that her dad was a doctor or whatever, I'm still like, she was a Firefly. He kind of just ruined everything for everybody. I can see that, So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting how he really single-handedly destroyed that group,
Mm.
You had to have some kind of just deep rage to just be able to take out that many fireflies in a close vicinity like that.
And they all have machine guns.
And they all have machine guns. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Joel?
I guess speaking of Joel, he's more of a side character in this.
He's in it a lot.
He's in it a decent amount.
Yeah, they did the whole Arkham Joker thing. You know, he's
not the
dead, but
same.
he's still in the game.
He's in flashbacks, multiple.
A lot
Basically,
of
like
flashbacks.
after each day as Ellie, there is a flashback involving Joel,
Mhm.
and then even there's more like with the farm and at the very end.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, those flashbacks are some of my favorite points in the game. They're very one. It's just Joel. You can tell in this game, even like the first flashback, which is Ellie's birthday. I think is a year after they had been in Jackson, so a year after the end of the first game. And even at that point, you can see he's just a changed dude. You know, he is different. He is happy. He is, like playful and just almost a completely different person.
Yeah. I honestly, but going back to the Arkham Joker thing, I thought they were going to go full Arkham Joker and have you see him like
Yes,
subconsciously
I thought they
every
were
now
gonna
and
do
again.
that too.
I thought they were.
I thought it would have been better if they did.
Yeah, even like the very first announcement trailer for the game, that is a fan theory people had.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, as much as I would hate Joel to die, that would be cool. I'm on board for that if that happened. And it's like, I think really, if it wasn't for Dina existing as a character, I feel like that would have absolutely happened because you need someone for Ellie to talk to in terms of any type of storytelling element. If you have a character by themselves, then they have to talk. They still have to talk.
They talk to
So,
themselves.
Yeah,
normally.
and so usually, you have to kind of write in a way for them to talk to themselves in a way that isn't just, why is this person talking to themselves? This doesn't make sense. And having like that, kind of in your mind person haunting you is a very easy yet can still be very effective way to do that. As in like Batman Arkham Knight, it was a very effective way to have Batman kind of deal with all of these thoughts in his head by having the actual Joker there being his kind of bad side.
The side characters?
Yeah, side characters. There's a lot. To me, kind of the main ones.
Yeah, let's start with the first half and do the second half of the...
Gotcha. So the first half, you have Dina, who her and Ellie, they start out the game. So, there was that whole it was E3 2016, I think. They had that whole trailer of that party. The two of them kiss. It's a whole thing.
It's adorable.
Yes.
Love it.
And the game starts out the day after that. And
I thought that was genius, by the way. I thought that was genius marketing.
You mean the trailer?
Showing what happens right before the game starts.
Oh, yeah. I was very questioning of that decision until the point when that scene actually happened in the game, because it happened so late, I thought it was never going to happen.
See, I thought it wasn't in the game at all.
And so I was like, well, that's kind of a bad decision to make so many references to this thing that was a trailer that I'm sure a chunk of people who play this game did not see. But, they have that moment, and then in the first day of the game, they basically get together officially, I guess. And then when Ellie decides she's going to Seattle after Abby's group, Dina goes with her. At the end of the first day, you find out she's pregnant. Not a decision I was happy with.
So, Dina is the definition of ride or die. When she was first introduced, I was not that into her. I was like, this is just some random girl. Like, how is she going to build a relationship with Ellie? And then when they get to Seattle, like, it still kind of felt that way to me. And then gradually, I think like the moment it clicked for me was when Dina rescues Ellie, and she does all that badass shit in that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like shoots down through the roof and falls. And I was like, shit, Dina is hardcore. I'm like, I'm here for this. And then I also was not happy about her being pregnant, but it made me respect what she decided to do to save us even more. And also, I loved the family scene at the end. I feel like that was definitely a good thing to have.
I loved Dina from the beginning because at first when you have that snowball fight scene with the kids, and so they're
cute.
trying to show the sweet side of Dina, and so you go on the journey, you hear about more backstory of what they've been through before you even see it, and then when they get to the underground, I guess you would call it a greenhouse with just all the weed there.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And then you have that cutscene and then that's really when they get together.
Yeah.
And you fall in love with Dina so quick that after Seattle Day One, when they just like rip you from her,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, she has to stay here now. You got to go do it all on your own." It's like,
Yeah. It sucked.
really,
It sucked.
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. No, it's like I had told you, Kyle. My response to that was Ellie and I both said what at the same time upon that realization, and Ellie was like, "What?" and I was like, "What?"
I always
Because
loved the joke when she was like, "Don't worry, it's not yours." I
Yeah.
laughed
that
at
was
every time.
that was funny. Yeah, to me it's like kind of like what you said, Noah. I love the family scene. I really did enjoy that. I thought that was really cool. To me, it felt like this was just the writers were like, we need Ellie to be on her own because it's her story. How do we get her that way? And so this to me seemed kind of like a
It was a
lazy way to do
shoehorn.
it. Yeah,
shoehorn.
It
yeah,
was, they're really trying to shoehorn her out of there so they can get the next guy up in there.
pretty much.
You
And
know.
so that was like my big issue with it was I was like, okay, that just seems like you just want Ellie on her own, but you don't want to kill Dina. Is
Right.
what that was bad.
Right. So obviously, final verdict. We love Dina. It was
Yeah.
stupid she was pregnant. Next,
Jesse.
Jesse. Okay, so Jesse is the most chill guy ever.
He is
He does not give a fuck about
no,
anything.
like he finds out about the kiss accidentally because like Ellie just assumed he already knew, and he's just like, I'm sorry, what now? But then he's instantly like, yeah, no, it's fine, we're broken up, you guys fine. And then even the second you encounter Dina, which is solid 5 minutes after Jesse found out about it, and Dina is just kind of not listening to him, he just taps he's like, hey, get your girlfriend, come on, like instantly he's just like on board.
Right, yes.
And
Yeah, he's awesome.
and he went to Seattle completely by himself to help you, just because one, he respected Joel as well, and two, he was like, my friend's problems are my problems, so
Yeah,
we're doing
that was
this.
really cool. I thought it was a little random, like, because everybody else there had a very personal reason. Like, Tommy, obviously, Ellie, obviously, and Dina, who is Ellie's ride or die. Jesse is just like, to me, like, we didn't really hear too much. Like, if we saw him and Joel interact a little more, I would have understood why he felt like he had to go to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I just thought it was like, hey, here's another companion. Now you're with him for a bit, and we bring him back, and he stays there, and then we go find somebody else, and But like, obviously, I love Jesse as a character, and boy, did they do him dirty, in the end of his story.
I was really, really upset about it.
Yeah,
about
I
his
was
death.
pissed. I was pissed.
I don't honestly. If you go back,
I was more upset about Jesse's death than I was about Joel's death.
I would agree simply for the fact of I knew before, like when that whole those like spoilers leaked out a few months ago.
Yeah.
I didn't get
I
any
never
of that.
saw them. Yeah.
I never did, but I still was like,
I knew. Yeah.
knew Joel was going to die.
Yeah.
It happened way earlier than I thought, but I knew it was going to happen.
Yes.
yeah,
Jesse was completely unexpected.
the way he went out, it was crazy. You just pop through the door, bam, gone, and you can't process it that fast enough. And it's like looking back at it now, because you do it over again on Abby's side. But looking on her side, I don't know if he got shot in the head because it looks like he got shot in the under eye right here. So how he died, it's a mystery to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the processing.
I mean, it's kind of like you said. Like that was one of those moments that I just related with Ellie so much because she went out like she was just as shocked as I, because she didn't see it coming, and like she was kind of the same as I was. Like he's just gone, like instantly. Like you guys are literally just having a conversation, and then boom, he's done.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
just so shocking.
When I heard like the bump and they're like, "What was that?" I knew exactly what was about to happen.
I knew what was about to happen, but I knew that I was like, okay, Abby's here. She's probably got Tommy now. I didn't think I thought she was just going to point the gun at us. I did not think she was going to just start firing.
Well, the problem was they bursted through the door.
Yeah,
But
it's also I'm sure Abby expected that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that was the problem.
Yeah,
but all in all, Jesse in this game to me, he was an enjoyable character. He didn't really have a dynamic. I can't really think about like what his purpose was, except for like to break the drama of Dina and Ellie's whole thing because it just felt like drama and
Yeah.
emotion pouring from them all the time, and
Yeah.
Jesse's just like having a good time.
And I feel like him and Owen were both comedic
Yeah.
relief
Yes.
side characters.
Owen fell flat for me. It was more Manny.
Oh, that is true.
mine.
I forgot about Manny.
Manny's also.
Yeah.
But we'll get to him.
Yeah. There's also Tommy. I was upset with this because when Joel died and Ellie and Tom were talking, I loved Tommy in the first game, and in the short amount he was in this game before Joel's death, I loved him in this game, and I thought like, oh man, it's gonna be like Tommy and Ellie.
I thought that too.
And so I thought like, awesome, we're gonna get to see more Tommy because I really like Tommy, but then he just went off before you did, and you never see him until the end of Ellie's third day.
Yep.
Like, so that was kind of like, I wish he'd been in the game more, but he's in it. He almost dies. Really, I don't know how he's not dead because he got shot in the face.
He did get shot in the face.
100% shot in the face. And then, he got shot in the leg with an arrow, so he's kind of crippled after Seattle. And he's the reason that Ellie ends up leaving again. Which to me, at that point, I was like, well, now I just kind of wish he died. Because this, like, I want this, like, talk about it later, but I just wasn't happy with him being so, like I feel like he should have been, you're lucky you got out alive. She could have and probably should have killed all of you, but she didn't. A second time. Just at that point, it's like, accept your loss, move on.
It was incredibly out of character, I felt like. Because at the beginning of the game, I said this to Kyle. At the beginning of the game, Tommy is reserved, in my opinion. Joel's dead. He understands this is a hard world. People die, that happens, but you can't let that control your whole life. And then he up and leaves, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's involved in this. And he goes on this killing spree by himself, and but then he nearly dies to Abby. And I'm like, okay, he'll understand that she let us go again. Now we're thankful for what we have, and we go back to our families and just live happy lives. And then he comes to the farmhouse, and he's pissed that Ellie won't go kill Abby. And I'm just like, why?
Especially because, like, he was the biggest reason, I feel like, that Ellie even agreed to leave in the first place without having found her. Because Jesse had tried to...
the second time?
Like in Seattle. Because Jesse had tried to... Like, when Jesse found out Dina was pregnant, he was like, well, we gotta leave. Like, she can't be here. We just need to go. And even, like, in day 3, Jesse and Ellie are going together to find Tommy. They're not going to look for Abby. They want to find Tommy, which I guess they are... By extension, they are going to the aquarium where they think Abby is because that's where they think Tommy is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we, don't care about Abby. We just want to get Tommy and we want to go home. And then they find out Tommy's somewhere else. And Jesse's like, well, let's just go here then. And Ellie just refuses because she just wants her revenge. And then at the aquarium, Tommy and Jesse find her. And then at that point, she's like, okay, we'll leave. So to me, it was a huge 180 there that I didn't like.
Yeah, they really flip-flopped her so many times. She's like, I don't care about revenge, never mind. And then the next second, she's like, all I care about is fucking this bitch up. And I'm like, pick a lane and stick with it. It doesn't make sense to just be like, who is this woman? What does she want?
So, those are the Ellie side.
Yes.
On the Abby side, there are more side characters on her side because Seattle is where she lives. To me, the big ones. There's Owen, her ex. I liked Owen. I think he, to me, was the most quote unquote good character. I think he was like the most reasonable, and I feel like he was kind of the only one who was like not giving up on who he was, or at the very least trying not to. Like, I feel like, especially he kind of feels he lost his way, but he's trying to get back to that, and that's, the biggest reason that he wanted to leave and go to Santa Barbara to try to find fireflies, because to him, the fireflies were his beliefs aligned with them. He didn't care about the WLF. He didn't care about the Seraphites. That was his group. And he wanted to go back to doing what the fireflies' goal was, which was to help people and find a cure. He ends up dying. We'll say that about a lot of people in this game. I was not really upset about his death when it first happened because I didn't have a lot of experience with him. I still thought like he's the coolest of that group, like he's the most chill, but Yeah, I wasn't that upset. And then as you play as Abby and get him more, I'm like, yeah, see, this guy didn't deserve that. He was like you could tell that he already like kind of hated himself for that whole experience. Like he was like everyone in that group for the most part, like, kind of regretted it a bit. At least how brutal things got. Him above all was like, like when you first meet him in Abbey's side, he had killed another WLF member because he had refused to kill a Seraphite, and because he was just like, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore.
I felt differently about Owen. I felt like he had a way better backstory than Abby did. I felt like he was a deeper character. He did have conflict inside of him, and he did have a love triangle, but he did want to run away. You know, to me, it was like, as far as like Abby's group goes, why they would just like join a random group. I know like why the developers had that happen because the Seraphites and the Wolves are cool, right? It's interesting to see that faction orientation, but like maybe like the farthest stretch that the game tries to go for it, and to me it was just like they all are just like aimlessly following orders.
Well, to me, it was just safety in numbers. Like, get a group because group means survival. Like, I didn't really need a big explanation for that.
I thought it wasn't enough. Anywho, Owen, he, if you look at his actions instead of his words, I mean, he is constantly like involved with more than one person at a time, and he went along with Abby's revenge plot, even though he didn't believe in it like she did. And I don't know, I kind of felt like at the end you were right, he wanted to change and be good like he used to be.
Owen, for me, I honestly thought everybody that came from the Fireflies to the WLF were good in their own way because the Fireflies were all about peace, trying to find a vaccine. The WLF were so focused on fighting the Seraphites that anything else they were trying to do was clouded because of that. And you can see that even down in the later game when they went to the Seraphite Island to fight them, how Abby and everybody was like, we need to get the hell out of here. We need to get on that boat and we need to go to Santa Barbara. Like, why are we still doing this? Well, they never wanted any of this. So Owen, to me, he was the comedic relief as well as like Jesse was the comedic relief. He did have that one cutscene that I hate. That we don't want to talk about that one,
We'll talk about it later.
but I don't know. His backstory, kind of like Abby's, never really made sense to me. Like they just put him in there so Abby could have. It's like Elliot to Dina. They needed a Dina for Abby, so they gave him Owen.
Right.
They was just trying to place those dynamics in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have issues with his existence, I guess. But to me it's kind of the same thing of most of the people on that side. Abby is the main focus. They're all side characters. They were given the side character treatment of they're not as important, so their backstories, their everything else, not as much time went into them.
I know, and you keep saying Abby's the focus, but to me, she's like the shallowest of characters. Like you can't dip your toe into Abby's depth. There's nothing there.
I disagree.
Her plot is her dad died. She wants revenge. Her whole life is about that, and she doesn't care about anything else until she finds this random boy and girl whose ages are nondescript, but I guess they're both children. And
Yeah, I would say.
and she like focuses on helping them, and that's supposed to make me feel like she's a good person. You could argue that she can let go now that she has got her revenge.
Well, I think that's the whole point of why she does help.
What do you mean?
Because to me, anyways, we'll talk about it later. I just want to we'll go through the characters first,
Okay.
and then
Speaking of which,
speaking of comedic relief, Manny, nonstop fun.
yes, he died.
He dies. He was of all of Abby's group the only death that I was sad about.
Yes, I
Like,
was sad about
'cause-
Manny's death.
When you first kind of meet him as Abby playing as her, I like at this point, playing the game, like it was taking so long, that I was like, I don't remember killing this guy. Did I kill this guy? I don't think I killed this guy. And then even because I hadn't killed him as Elliot, I was like, was he even there at that whole thing? I don't remember this guy. So he was just super fun, just nonstop jokes, just loved it so much. And then you meet him the second time when you're just being like when Tommy took out his whole crew, and Manny and Abby end up chasing him. And the second he had like shut that door, Tommy had, and they had run around. Literally, I was like, "You can open that and leave at any point." And the second they'd like kind of like stopped to take a break, boom, he was dead. And he wasn't like you meet his dad, I guess, but it's not much to him at all, really.
No, yeah, that's about it. He, I mean, he was nice. Unlike every other character on Abby's side, he didn't say anything annoying to me. He didn't have any bad blood with anybody. He didn't do anything like mean or cruel or anything like that.
I think, to me, Manny and Jesse are kind of that same person. They both, like, nonstop sarcasm, nonstop jokes, but they do really care about their friends, and that comes across very much, of, like, the small things they say. Like, Manny wanting Abby and Mel to, talk again, and saying, like, oh, like, things have been rough for everybody, like, we need to try to move past everything. So he, to me, was like, they're both that same kind of person.
I do gotta say, though, on that bridge, when you are Abby and you're with Manny on that bridge, I don't know how, but Tommy is got a shot. Like, I don't know any other person that would have that kind of a shot, but, like, pinpoint accurate shot that Tommy has during that whole scene.
Yeah, gameplay wise, I mean, like, he was hitting me like while I thought I was crouched behind things, and I'm like, what is he hitting my? Oh, how is this?
I actually, while on the street, while kind of inside that garage, I was hit a bit. But while on that street, I was not hit once, but everything. I was always terrified to move. Like, I would spend like 5 minutes crouched behind this car because I'm like, okay, I don't think I can get to that car in time. Let me look the other side. Okay, just so many things of like, because I didn't know just because I was never hit, but to me, the mood of that moment made me think that this was you get hit once, you're dead. Especially because it's Tommy shooting at you. If this guy hits you, he's hitting your face. So I very much had that mentality, so I was always terrified to move because I didn't want to have to like replay it all, whatever. So I think that scene that was done very well. And Tommy, it's fun to me seeing Tommy this way because in the first game, he's kind of like he's passive. He doesn't care about all that anymore. He has his wife, he has his community. That's he just wants to live his life. And in this game, you realize like, oh man, like this is Joel's brother. The two of them, like they did a lot of shit before he got to that point. This guy's a killer.
Yeah, I just wish they did his ending better because I really feel like they kind of ruined the character that Tommy was.
Yeah.
Especially like in the first game, Tommy was like what Joel becomes in Jackson. And I would like to believe that if Tommy died and Joel was alive, he wouldn't. I mean, like we'd go kill Tommy's killers, but Joel wouldn't be like, we stop at nothing.
Him at the end was even more annoying because he couldn't do it. Like he said himself, he's like, he's basically crippled. He can't do it. One, I was upset because he had basically drove Maria away. They were separated now because of his obsession with trying to find Abby. And I'm like, well, I don't like that. I liked him and Maria together. And him judging Ellie for not going when it's like, you're like, you can't do it, but you're willing to have this young person who is happy in her life with his family. You're willing to just send her off when the last time she went off, it didn't go very well for her. That to me was like when Tommy, that was a character change that I did not like. Because I feel like Tommy initially, even in Seattle, the entire reason he went by himself was because he didn't want, Ellie, Dina, all of them to put themselves in danger to get those killers. He was like, I'll just do it.
Right. So anyway, we keep going very far off track of these characters. The last two we can talk about together at least. Yeah. Lev and Yara.
Lev and Yara.
My favorite character is on Abby's side.
Lev might be my single favorite character in this game.
Yes.
I love Lev so much.
Lev, he really had he had that Atreus energy.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that? Yeah.
To me, he was kind of like a mix of like Atreus and like Ellie from the first game.
Okay.
Like he's like he's very ignorant to the ways of the world outside of where he is.
Yes.
Like kind of like really like both Atreus and Ellie. Of Atreus only growing up in the house in the secluded woods. Ellie growing up in Boston didn't have much experience outside the world there. And So to me, he was kind of like a perfect balance of those two characters,
Mhm.
and he was never a little shit like the other two were
Yes.
at times.
Yeah, I always thought Lev to me, like Ellie in the first game and like Atreus, you always got that parental vision when you were around him. Like, this is my son. And for them to go the route of him being transgender, I really, really loved it.
I thought that was awesome.
I love the way that they put these issues forward and how we are progressing in games like this. I really do love it. The way that you find out, because like I said, my first playthrough, I had no idea. And so my second playthrough, when you hear it, it was like, Lily, that's your name, Lily. You're supposed to be
Bride.
the bride of an elder.
Yeah.
No, I want to be a warrior. This is what I want to be. And so his adolescence and him trying to figure out who he is and what this world is, you really felt that parental role for Lev.
I'm still confused about that whole thing. So, Lev is biologically a woman?
Yes.
Oh.
Lily.
Okay, that
So basically,
makes more sense.
the story there, for anyone who doesn't know, is Yara was her. Everyone when they reach a certain age are given their jobs for their whole lives.
Mhm.
Yara was like a soldier. Lev or Lily wanted to be a soldier, but was assigned to be a wife of one of the elders, and that is when he finally was like kind of didn't want to do that, and that's when he kind of decided to stop pretending and just be himself, and thus he shaved his head, which is why it's illegal to shave your head, which is kind of confusing at first because you're like, well, why can't this boy shave his head? And it's like, oh, because yeah, okay, that makes more sense. And I also think it's very, as someone who obviously I am not transgender, I don't really know anybody I think that I can say that is transgender personally. So to me, I feel like they did a great job with Yara's perspective. To me, of being like, I can understand that. Of Yara did not like kind of understand, and then she said, like when talking to Abby, like, well, he explained to me how he felt, and like that made me kind of, like I understood, his perspective, and then she told him that he had to hide it because she, being supportive sister, she loved him, supported him, but she knew that if the others found out, he would be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely, that whole thing even made me like Yara more because it was like the whole like stigma against transgender, especially in religious affiliations, including the Seraphites, who are basically a cult. Her to be like, well, that's still Lev, that's my brother. Like, I don't care. I love him. He can be what he wants, and I will support that. And that to me was very, very well done.
Mhm.
Yara, she loses her arm.
Yeah, she had a cool death.
Yeah, and then she loses her life. I was very upset about that.
You never really got to learn who Yara is.
Yeah, like
It
Yara
was really,
existed,
her job was really to just like tell the story of Lev.
existed as like Lev's guardian, and then Abby took over that role. Even sort of before she died, when she first just needed the surgery, and Lev went with you to get the supplies.
Right.
And then afterward, obviously, after she died. Which to me, I think, is also a big turning point. Even though it's not discussed much, I feel like that's also kind of one of the final, like, nails in the coffin, you could say, of Abby's whole turning of being like, you know what? Screw these wolves. I don't care about them. I just want to leave. I feel like that was kind of the final.
I feel
final
like
thing.
she never cared.
I feel like no, I think you're right, but I think like I feel like she thought they could still maybe sort of be reasoned with, but at the point of when like Isaac was going to kill Lev, even though Lev was a child, and Abby was like, I like just a kid, like doesn't mean he does not pose a threat, and then all of the wolves that were with Isaac and Isaac himself were like, no, that's a scar, they're dying.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was kind of her final thing of being like, well, I don't need you people then, and being like, I'll, don't get in my way or I'll kill all of you too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, finally done with those.
There's a lot of characters, a lot to talk about. The game is similar to the first in a lot of ways. Specifically, we're talking gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the gameplay in terms of combat and everything, very, very similar.
Yes, only they just copy pasted and improved on everything in the first game. Like added some new features here and there, like going prone.
Going prone,
I was
which
prone a lot.
I was prone a lot. It is easily one of the best added features to me.
Mm-hmm.
I did not. One thing that I know it was kind of highlighted in that like initial gameplay trailer, and was something that is sort of a thing is being able to crawl under things. I did not use that a lot.
Yeah,
In,
that did
like
not
in,
appear pretty well. Yeah.
in traversal, it was a thing, but in combat, like I used it in that first kind of rooftop moment when they teach you how to do it, and then like never again.
Yeah.
I used it a couple times here and there when I saw something I could and I needed to. Then I was like, oh, thank God. And I'm crawling that way, but that only happened like maybe 3 or 4 times in the whole game.
Like, I think maybe there was one fight that I did it, but like I don't remember really. But it was still, I mean, just the whole going prone thing was really cool. The movement was very realistic, being able to aim while prone, and how both characters would like twist their bodies in ways that to me were like, oh man, like you're seeing this person do it, and it's believable that a person is doing this.
Mhm.
You know, it wasn't like the old Call of Duty games where they got to be making some kind of weird, body position for that to work.
Yeah. What something I didn't like about the combat was I thought the hand-to-hand combat was improved for the most part, except for the evade feature, which
like dodge.
The dodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of broken. Like how I think in like terms of gameplay, how I think they designed it is that like when you dodge, it would magnet to an attack and like auto dodge it. But if you're not like facing that person in the exact right way when you do that, then you kind of just like step to the left or the right a little bit, and sometimes you still get hit. Sometimes you're lucky and you dodge it.
No, that is
No,
I very much agree with that.
Mhm.
My biggest issue with the hand-to-hand combat, I feel like they should have included some sort of lock-on because because there'd be times where like I'm trying to find this person and I'm pressing square and I'm just swinging wildly and I'm trying to just turn like in a circle because like with dodging and hitting I'm just like flailing around like an asshole because I'm not like facing the person. But the way that the two of us are arranged, we're both just kind of running in a circle, chasing each other.
Yeah.
And that's something that to me I was like, it could be very easily fixed with with a lock-on feature. Although, as someone who has never made a game, I don't know how difficult that would be to implement, especially in a game where you switch from melee to like gun combat very fluidly, very quickly. So I feel like that would have been a lot harder to do. But I definitely think that would have been something that would have improved.
Right. It looked cool though. Like I felt like with Ellie, I felt like my cuts were impactful. With Abby, I felt like I was punching the fuck out of people. Whenever I had a weapon, I thought they felt satisfying to hit. I felt like all the killing animations were good. The things I didn't like, aiming was kind of rough, and I can't remember if it was like that for the first game, but
unless you had the upgrade for like the less sway on the aiming, the sway was atrocious.
Yes.
That is something that like the aim stability upgrades on guns and you do get like even an ability you can upgrade with supplements that like literally like it decreases the sway by 100% and increases stability by 100%, something like that. And I'm like, it is one incredibly useful. I would recommend getting that as soon as you can, especially if you're someone like me who I can barely shoot guns in any game with any sort of accuracy. And it was just really like I don't think it was that extreme in the first one, but it is very extreme.
Yeah, I felt like it was much harder. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the like the backpack system, the crafting upgrade kind of stuff. Supplements. Sometimes I felt like I had so many, and sometimes I felt like they're really hard to come by. I did not like the fact that you had to find your skill trees. I never liked that in games that tried that.
I thought that was fine because I found them rather quickly.
I had trouble.
The training manuals and stuff, they were not hard to find. I found all of them in my first playthrough like rather quickly into both storylines.
I played the normal mode. My first playthrough, the moderate, whatever you want to call it.
Yep, I did as well.
Yeah, I always felt like parts and supplements were everywhere. I always found them. And then the skill tree in the last game you had the option to pick what upgrade you want. This one you have to go down the line. If you don't want that one and you want one like down the line, too bad. You have to get that one
Yeah.
first. And I hated that aspect.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
like that.
I hated that part of it. I like the overall concept more because there's a lot more that you actually affect with supplements. Like in the first game, you have like your 6 things, and you just upgrade those more. Like more like different levels. But this one, it actually was like almost every skill was a different thing, and I really liked that. I did not like the skill tree kind of for the reason you said of, oh, I really want this skill here, but it's skill number 4, and the first 3 are things that the way I play this game I will never use, will never affect me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing, the biggest example of that I feel like was in one of Abby's, the first skill in whatever tree I don't remember is like momentum, which is a thing when like doing like physical combat of like if you kill an enemy, then you like your next attack basically will be an insta kill for a certain amount of time. But to me, like I didn't use physical combat usually unless I was only fighting one person.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there was only one zombie left or one human left, I almost like never used it because you can't really. So that one to me was like a useless skill. But the ones below it, like, were things like I believe like crafting more effective health kits and being able to use health kits faster, or something like stuff like that. That I was like, well, I need those because I get hit a lot.
I always tried to limit the combat because I felt like if I'm hitting somebody and there's people around me, I'm very afraid of everybody around me because I felt like in this game, you die a lot more than you did in the last one. Like every attack that you get hit with deals a lot more damage than they did in the last game. So I always found myself, I have to have like full med kits. Have to, because I'm going to use them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use them so quickly.
In the first game, usually like playing through on any difficulty like normal, easy, I always had 3 health kits, and my bandages and alcohol were maxed out because I would never use health kits. I would never need to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was even to the point where it's like, oh, I got hit once. I guess I'll use a health kit and then make another one so I can at least pick up more stuff, because I would always feel bad, like, not picking up stuff because I couldn't. In this game, I felt like with both ammo and with supplies, they were, to me, it just felt like there wasn't a lot. Like, there wasn't as much. And I always found an abundance of them when I didn't need them, but then whenever I did, I would not be able to find them. Which that's one thing I didn't like in terms of ammo. Is one, you carry less ammo in this game than in the first one. Like in the first one, you can basically carry 3 clip loads of ammo for every gun. I think maybe in addition to the clip in the gun. I don't think so though. But basically, like in the first game, unless you're playing on like, to me, like if I was playing on normal or easy, ammo was never an issue. Like I obviously like still didn't use it at every opportunity, which it could potentially become an issue if you're just using it as soon as you get it. But I was always fine with ammo. In this one, playing through on moderate, I expect it to be that same way. But no, because you can only carry like for some weapons not even 2 full clips. Like for the hunting rifle, Ellie, you can carry 9 bullets. If you upgrade the clip capacity, I think upgrading clip capacity in the first game also means you carry more bullets. It doesn't mean that in this game. So you carry 9 hunting rifle bullets. Normally it carries, I think, 4 when you first get it, but then you can upgrade it to have 6. So you basically have a clip and a half of ammo, which is really like, it makes me not want to use any of the guns because you don't find ammo too much. And even like at moments where like it'd be like, okay, well, the last like 20 minutes I found so many bullets for guns that I have full. So this fight I'm just gonna go crazy and then I'll pick up bullets afterwards, and then I wouldn't find any afterwards. So like by the next fight I wouldn't have anything. So I'd be like, well, this is gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, for me, I spent most of my time with empty weapons because the longer I played this game, the more I was like, I'm so tired of it. I just want to get done with this shit. And so I like figured out the AI's detection system is not great. Their line of sight is not like incredibly far. If you are prone, you are pretty much invisible in this game. They cannot see you. You can be right next to somebody and they will not see you. They only see you if they step on you, pretty much, and that's about it.
Yeah.
That made it, once you figure that out, for me, that made like I just stealth through everything. I never needed my weapons. I almost never got caught and had to firefight. On Ellie's side, I was pretty much in a firefight in every altercation because I didn't know how good prone was yet.
Yeah.
Especially that I don't know the part that I had the hardest time with. Probably in the whole game. I think you jump over something and there's tall grass and it's like a bunch of houses and there's a house immediately in front of you and you can go downstairs and over to the area on the side and there's dogs and people and this is probably the biggest.
This is the first part of day 2. Is that
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes, where you're on your way to the sniper. I think
We're talking about Ellie or Abby here.
Jesse.
When you're going to
you're
find
going to
Jesse
find
as
Jesse.
Ellie. Okay.
Yes, yes, the very top part of where you're going down all these neighborhoods, and you have to stealth there. But there's like 20 people, a couple dogs.
Well, to me,
I had a really hard time with that. That's probably the part I had the hardest time with.
I would agree that part definitely to me took a long time. To me, the issue with that though is the dogs. The dogs are so OP in this game because they can pretty much smell you anywhere. You don't ever get anything to throw off the scent trail. You can't do that. Like I thought that would be something introduced. It's not. The best you can do is like just lure them around because they follow the trail. But that's and then unless the enemies are already alerted to your presence, it is always with a person. So like you can't. It is really hard to take them both out silently.
It is, yeah. You can take out the person first, but then you leave the dog, and the dog's really the scarier part in that duo, right? And if you take out the dog, then everybody's immediately aware you're there anyway. I had a lot of trouble with the dogs. They would spot me and come attack me, and I would struggle to kill them and deal with the people at the same time. My hits would like miss the dogs. They were hard to dodge. The whole system was broken. It just pissed me off. And then I'd be out of med kits. It was just all downhill.
Yeah. To me, like it got to the point where if there was a dog, that'd be the first thing I'd kill. I know it would alert everyone, but I'm like, these other people can't find me as easily as these dogs can. I can't take this.
Every time there was a dog, I'm like, oh, so stealth is not an option in this part.
Right.
I was like, so I'm going to, it's hand-to-hand combat and they're going to see me. I did love, though, when you're shooting somebody and then you hide behind something and then move, they're still on that one spot.
Yes.
And then you can get up behind them.
Yeah, I do like that.
I
also love the AI's call-outs.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah,
They're good teams. They're like, Sarah, move around over there. And then that person goes around to get another angle on you while the first person is holding their angle on you. And you're like, what do I do now? And then you just hold circle and crawl out of there.
Yeah, I also just love that everyone had a name. It really added personalization to them when, like, you would shoot someone and then someone else would be like, Sarah! Like I think I told you, like, I was playing, like, the first day in Seattle as Ellie. When you're going through, there's, like, kind of like a suburban area. There's there's, like, a gas station and all these, like, there's kind of, like, apartments and stuff. And at one point, I ended up, like, grabbing this person, which another thing I love is the fact that Ellie will grab someone, tell them to shut up, and then slit the throat and stab them.
Right.
I just
shut up.
Yeah. Like, just like, shut up while I kill you. Like, that was so, like, literally every time, no matter how many times I did it, it always makes me laugh. But I kill this person, and then I leave, and then another person spots the body, and is like, oh my god, it's Sarah. And then the second she says that, I shoot her with a, like, silenced pistol, and, like, so it's really, she's like, oh my god, it's Sarah, dead. Jenny? Where'd you go? And I was like, oh man, like these people, like, it made me like, not necessarily like sympathize with them, but it just made me be like, man, like these, like, I'm really ruining their day.
Hundreds of people.
You kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think, to me, that also, it just kind of adds to that aspect of, like, it makes me feel more like, these are people. Like, these are, this, patrol of people, they're probably friends. They all like each other, and you are ruining their day. And, to me, it just made it much more kind of immersive in that aspect of being like, oh, it's not just nameless NPCs. These are actual, like, people. These are friends. They have lives.
Right. Another part of the combat I wanted to touch on was the zombies, the clickers. The clickers and the runners and stuff like that. There were only 2 new types in this game. Kind of lackluster. Only one if you don't count the boss.
That's correct. I thought you were counting stalkers, and I'm like, eh.
No, they
They're
were in the
they're
first one,
they're different in this game.
They're a little bit different.
They're a
but
little
they
bit
were
different.
in the first.
They were in the first, yeah.
One,
That's
so
why I
they're
was
not new. They're
um.
tweaked.
I don't count the boss.
So then you say
We'll talk
just
about the
one.
boss. To me, both of them, if you do count the boss, both of them absolutely disappointing.
I
Um,
think Shamblers.
I did not. To me, I thought when they introduced Shamblers, they were meant to be kind of like this game's bloaters. They were very easy to take out. Literally, like the first one I saw, I used basically what my strategy for taking out bloaters in the first game was hit them with a Molotov, hit them with a grenade, and then take out shotgun and fire until they stop moving. This game, I went in with that mentality, but you don't have grenades you can throw, which I did not like that. But so I didn't like. So basically, I would toss out that step of it, and I would throw a Molotov, pull out my shotgun, and shoot them. And it's Molotov, 2 shotgun shells, they're dead. And I was like the first time I encountered Shamblers, I did that, and I was like, oh, okay, that's done. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, they're not meant to be like bosses. They're another
Well,
regular
to
type.
me, like the bloaters in the first game, I guess with the exception of maybe like the very first one, they're not really bosses either. They're kind of mini. They're just mini
They
bosses,
were
I guess.
bosses.
Not as much as they are in this game,
There's still many bosses in this game.
but I mean, they yeah. But me, I was disappointed with the Shamblers, and then I became even more disappointed with the Shamblers. The second Ellie flashback, when you're going along this wall, and then you and Joel like hear something, you kind of look at each other, and then a bloater punches through the wall, grabs Ellie, and just throws her. And I'm like, that was terrifying. And then the bloaters in this game, they're bigger than they were in the first. They're badder. They're meaner. Like, in the first, they would basically just walk around, grab you, and kill you. These, they charge at you and run through walls. They
pick you up and throw you around.
yeah, like, these, like, legitimately were like, oh my god. And then, they took more to kill.
They took a lot.
Yeah. So to me, that just made the Shamblers even more disappointing because it was like, well, this like you made the scariest enemy of the first game even scarier, and then you added this, which was not as tough as I thought they would be when you first encountered them.
I had some trouble with their like acidic explosions sometimes, especially like the Shamblers. When you're like in the sewer and there's that room where there are 2 Shamblers, I had to go through that a couple times, and that gas was everywhere in that tiny room.
Also, I did really like the acid thing because to me my biggest issue in the first game, one of my biggest issues I had with it was when playing as Ellie in winter, you fight a bloater, and it throws the like pods, and Ellie starts coughing, and I'm like, no, she doesn't do that. She's immune. Like this, like I get that it's more concentrated, but to me it's like it's still the same thing. I don't know. I don't see how it would affect her. But in this, it was like I assume maybe that's part of the reason why it's acid. But to me, it was like it makes sense even in this world why she's affected by this because it is not just spores; it is acidic spores.
I was a big fan of Ellie's trip mine, and so putting down a trip mine and then calling the Shamblers over, letting them hit that, and then a couple rounds of your pistol would bring him down. So to me, they wasn't that bad. Yes, they take a lot more damage than the clickers can, so they're a little bit above the clicker for me. But yeah, it really wasn't. It was like another day in The Last of Us. I'm just gonna go kill these infected, and it really didn't pose no threat.
I'm glad you mentioned the trip mine. I did want to talk about that. I know you don't like it, but I like maybe about halfway through my Ellie time, and definitely in the later parts, I was using trip mine because the trip mines that you come across in the game, I had a lot of trouble with those, so I saw myself explode many times.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it like that when I set my trip mine down? And I did, and I got a dude to step on it. You just throw a bottle over there or something. You can even throw the stun grenades over there. It doesn't set off your bomb. And the range of it's pretty big, and so they step on it, and their legs pop off, their arms pop off, their whole body explodes, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. And and Lord knows I had enough materials to make 1,000 of those goddamn bombs.
I did not realize exactly how realistic this game was until the first time I was using my hunting rifle. And just the hunting rifle, the one good thing about the hunting rifle is it's, especially when you upgrade the damage, it's a one-shot kill no matter where you shoot him. But just due to my inability to aim in this game, trying to shoot a guy in the face, I shot his arm, and then his arm just came off. And I was like, oh, oh geez, oh my god. And he like falls to the ground screaming in pain, clutching his arm,
Yeah,
and
it's
like
super realistic.
slow, like such a slow death because he's literally bleeding out in pain. And I'm like, ew, I feel kind of bad about that one.
Yeah, shotguns explode
hmm
limbs. If you shoot somebody in the head, their brains are on the wall sliding down and stuff like that.
I the whole facial animation when you go up behind somebody with Ellie and stab them in the neck. Their facial animation
I thought the same
terrified me
thing
every
of
time.
like Elliot's face, like her kind of angry look, and
Mhm.
then to me it was even better when Abby would choke someone out because you could see like just the focus on her face as she's struggling to hold them in the person as they're slowly losing breath. It was really detailed, really cool, and like I'm glad you mentioned the brain thing because that actually reminded me of like in terms of how realistic this game was. Of me taking screenshots of things that I saw that I was like, man, that's actually like really realistic. The big one I remember in terms of that I saw was it's actually in the fight with the people who call Lev Lily the first time in the building, where one person I had like an upgraded melee weapon. I ran up and just hit him and just absolutely killed him. And I later, just because I was like going around exploring looking for stuff, I just kind of like noticed looking down that there was just this pool of blood. And I was like, what the heck? And like I looked, and literally like the blood was trailing from that person's head that I had hit into this pool. And I was like, oh man, that's really cool. And then like I walked over towards their body, and I saw like one splatter of like that is the exact angle that I hit them. That is literally how that would have happened. After watching on like 8 seasons of Dexter, I know a lot about blood spatter, and I'm like that's how that works. No, that is legitimately how that would have happened. Like how that blood would have flown out from how I hit that person. Just such a detailed thing.
Mm-hmm. If only the story was that attentive.
I also I liked speaking of kind of like the upgrade systems. In terms of weapons, one, I love how every time you do an upgrade, they actually work on it.
Yeah,
That was such a cool thing. Where it's like I was kind of mad that you couldn't see some of the stuff they were doing because their body was in the way. Because I just wanted to see. I'm like, oh, what are you doing here though? Like, oh,
Right.
oh, what are you doing? But that to me was really cool seeing that. I also like I feel like the gun upgrades in this game are a lot more simple than the first one, which I like that. There's like each gun has 3 or 4 upgrades, way less than the first one. There's also per person less guns than Joel had, which I liked because just I used all of them more. Like in like the first game, I really had like I used these 2 pistols, I used these 2 long weapons, and that's it. I didn't change around that much because there were just so many, and I'm like, well, these are the ones I'm comfortable with. These I'll use these. But those, it was like every gun was like I had a situation for. Of like, okay, when I'm stealthing, I have this loadout. When I'm not, I will switch to this loadout. And so to me, just kind of like it's one of those things of like by limiting it, there was more to it.
Yeah, I liked. That's the one thing I liked about switching characters was they had like similar weapons but tweaked, and so each character felt unique. I personally, I liked a lot of Abby's guns better.
I liked Ellie's better. I liked the hunting rifle. Just that was my favorite. That was my favorite gun in the first game. I liked the shotguns were pretty much the same. And then I liked the bow better than the crossbow. Especially one thing that I did not find out until way too late. That rangefinder upgrade on the bow, get that the second you can because it is easily the best weapon upgrade in the entire
Yeah,
game.
I got it very fast.
Like I did not realize it was that useful until like way late. I was like,
it tells you
man.
exactly where to aim.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know this is what that did. I thought it was just I didn't know I would have gotten this earlier.
So we can talk about the boss fights, both of them if you want to, real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's start with the bloater one.
Not really a bloater.
What did you say they called?
They called him the Rat King.
The Rat King.
I hated it.
You hated it. I was not a fan. I thought like it just felt like a really strong bloater.
To me, I'd say that's what it was. I didn't like it because one, just the fact that it existed to me in a game that is so like scientific with how their zombie apocalypse works. This I was like, what is this? This is like something out of a like monster movie. What are you doing here? And I thought at first when like you first see it that the entire thing was just going to be running from it and you weren't going to take it on because to me seeing it I was like, well, there's no way you can beat this by yourself. This thing's crazy. And if the entire fight was just running from it and somehow getting away from it, I would have been fine with it. But then when she's like, all right, we're doing this, I was like, oh, really? And then you fight it in such like a small area, which to me really is very hurtful to the fight because one, it literally kills you one hit. If it grabs you, you're dead. And two, it's such a big thing. It takes up so much space. Yeah, and that's also a thing where the whole dodging aspect really hurt because there'd be times where, like, once again, like, it's coming towards, like, it's trying to swing at me, and I'm kind of moving in a circle around it, just mashing L1 trying to dodge, but it's just not really working. And then when, like, the one kind of broke off of it, that to me was kind of the final being like, well, this is just dumb now. Because if it was just it by itself, then that would have been one thing, but adding that second thing that would just attack you just really annoyed me.
Yeah, my logic with that thing was like, I don't give a fuck about that thing. I'm just gonna kill the big thing.
Yeah, I had that too, but when that thing would run into you and grab you and stuff, and like you have to, either mass square or use a shiv to get it off of you as the big thing is still lumbering towards you the
Never
whole time.
crafted shivs.
I constantly would craft shivs.
Did
They're
not
useful.
craft water.
They're very useful. I didn't like. Yeah, I just didn't like the fight overall. Also, the fight can be made very easy if you have the flamethrower.
Yes.
Because that is literally how I killed it.
That's how I killed it.
Because it just ate up the rest of the bullets like sponge, but literally I just swapped to the flamethrower and just like held it on it, and it did damage fast enough that the thing would flinch like every once in a while. You do like every certain amount of damage.
Yeah.
And this, if you're just holding it on it, it can't really get to you because it, I guess, did enough damage that it would always reach that point before it could do anything.
Stunning it, right?
Yeah. So that, like, honestly, if it wasn't for the flamethrower, I'd probably still be doing that fight now. Like, it was just like ate through all of my ammo, like it was nothing.
Yeah, I had to do it I think 3 times.
I died a lot.
In mine, when the thing broke off, it kind of like just disappeared.
Oh, mine kept following.
That's how I won.
When I did it, well, before when you even got down there, they was like, "Oh, this was ground zero for the whole of Seattle." I was like, "Oh, you infected?" And then you went down there and you see all the infection everywhere on the walls, and I'm like, "This is cool." And then you had to crawl through that gross little thing. But yeah, when you was fighting it, like you guys said, the flamethrower, paramount to fighting that. I think I literally wasted every single bullet I had. Even Abby's bombs that she had, the ones that you could throw.
You have 5 bombs.
I was tossing them, and I was like, the flamethrower is the only thing that can stop that.
I thought the pipe bombs in this game were very underpowered, especially like the grenades in the first game, very powerful. These, very much not.
Molotovs as well.
Oh, I thought the Molotovs were very good.
I did not like the Molotovs.
The first game,
it was like a small circle that could fit one person inside of it. I felt like in the first game you could hit like 4 or 5 people.
Well, in the first game you found a training manual that like doubled the radius of it, and you find that like pretty early after getting the Molotovs, so that would potentially be a reason why. In this you can upgrade the radius, but even then, like without it, I would use it when there were people grouped together. Like that's when I would use it. Like specifically,
I used it in the beginning, and that was about it.
Yeah, I used it like there were 2 moments I can specifically remember using it. Both like in that final section as Ellie, when one there's like a person with a dog that's just going in a U and meets up with this like third guy. I threw it, killed the dog, and both of them. And then another one is when you get to like the Rattlers compound.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the one zombie that's on a chain, like the guy's taunting it, and that other person's like, "Hey man, like this is stupid."
Man.
I hit all 3 of them with it, and those are really the only 2. Like I used it on zombies, but in terms of actual people, because you had to pretty much hit a person with it instantly to kill them, actually have them die from burning from it.
Yeah, the first game, I loved the Molotovs because I would use them in like a group of clickers or any infected, really. I would throw it, and I would hit 1 or 2 usually, but that would cause the others to come running, and they would step in the excess fire that was there, and then they would light them on fire.
Yeah. This game, it does that, but the excess fire is not as effective as the first. To me, really kind of like the first game, my main use of the Molotovs was on bloaters. In this game, my main use of the Molotovs was on shamblers. I would just Molotov them, 2 shotguns, done. That was how I took out every shambler's Ellie.
Right. All right, so the other boss fight would be, I would say the only other boss fight in this game is also playing as Abby, where you're fighting Ellie.
I thought that boss fight was really cool. I obviously didn't like that I was fighting Ellie, but I thought one thing about that boss fight that was really cool is Ellie uses all of the weapons that you got as Ellie. She uses the trip mines, the Molotovs. She used all of it, and I thought that is actually really cool because that like she's actually using all this stuff that I spent a lot of time crafting and finding
Mm-hmm.
instead of just using, whatever weapon, like
Just
standard
one,
weapons.
right?
Yeah.
Like the bow or just
Yeah.
something like other.
Like the first time I stepped on a trip mine, I was just so shocked. I was like, what just happened?
You
And
stepped on one?
yeah,
You
because I
can
didn't
see them in listen mode.
I wasn't listening. Like I knew where Ellie was. Like I knew where she was. I knew the direction she was traveling, and I was behind her. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, because you move slower in listening mode. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna follow her till I catch up to her. And then boom, stepped on one. I was just like, what just happened? And then like it took me to, like the hint screen when it was loading, and it was like, oh, make sure to watch out for trip mines. And I was like, oh, I didn't know she was gonna do that. I didn't know she was pulling all the moves on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I was like, when you got to like that third, it was like the third phase, right? Where she pulls out the bow and starts laying down the trip mines. I watched her like sneak around and set up a trip mine, and I was like, this bitch, she's trying to get me with my own tricks. But you can see them, like they're on the ground, they're little white highlighted, and I'm like, why are those there?
Yeah.
That shouldn't be shown.
Yeah.
I did love, like you guys said, how she would use everything.
Mhm.
It was like if it wasn't AI, how it looked AI, that's exactly how I would do it.
Right.
But it also reminded me of how Ellie was when she fought David in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
How Abby only she had was her knife. That was it. And how Ellie, that's all she had. And so you would have to hide behind corners. And in the second half, after you fought David, how he would hide with his machete. And so it really, I cross-referenced that. It reminded me a lot.
Oh, it was very much a very more complex version of that fight, I thought. Like, literally, as I was going through, I'm like, dude, this is exactly like this is David. This is
Mhm.
David all over again, but now Ellie's the bad guy.
Right, and at the end, she almost kills Dina. I was gonna flip
Oh.
shit if she killed Dina.
Yeah, because especially, like, when Ellie said she was pregnant, I was like, oh, that's not going to stop her. You killed Mel. Which,
Right,
but then,
she
like,
killed
Abby
Mel, and I
was like,
don't say that.
yeah, Abby was like, good. And I'm like, but then Lev stopped it.
Yeah,
Lev,
thank God
thank you.
Lev was there.
See, to me, that, yeah.
Because
I
Lev's
was-
like, he doesn't know about any of this. He's just like, this is messed up.
Yeah, that's yeah. I definitely thought that was a good boss fight. I guess there's also technically the third boss fight at the end of the game when you were Ellie fighting Abby. I didn't like it.
That's not a boss fight.
That whole really, I did not like that whole section of the game. But that fight, like, once again, it's all physical combat, and once again, the physical combat is not the best. So a lot of like the dodging issues, punching issues I had, in which that was that entire fight.
Mhm.
So it was like, to me, like the emotional weight behind it was sometimes kind of ruined by like, once again, us just flailing around in circles trying to hit each other.
I love how they was like, okay, well, in reality, Ellie can't beat Abby because Abby's a goddamn ox. And so we're going to have Abby become skinny as hell, and then maybe Ellie can beat Abby. So I was like, oh, okay.
Even
well.
then, she still
I
barely
don't
does it.
know. I disagree. I think Ellie was putting up a fucking fight, even in their first fight when Abby was at full strength. And
Oh, she was
one.
putting up a fight,
You know, like
but
she was cutting Abby, she was biting her. I mean, she was
I'm
doing
talking
everything.
about like with fists up.
Right.
Not when Abby is at full strength. If it's Abby and Ellie at full strength, Abby's beating her 9 times out of 10.
In a fist fight,
Yeah.
yes. If Ellie has her knife, it's a little bit more in her.
I mean, to me, it's
direction.
kind of that whole thing of you see kind of in like boxing matches stuff like that. The whole like kind of like the agility, dodging, quick punches versus the guy who just takes hits and just throws out bombs. To me, it's kind of very much that same vein. The last fight, I just did not. I was just tired.
I did not
I was
consider
tired
that
at
a
that point.
boss fight at all. Like that was like a what is it called? That was like a quick time. That's what it felt more like to me.
I can see
I
that.
felt like I was watching it.
To me, it felt like the Naruto Sasuke fight when they were both just out of power and they're just doing those slow punches and stuff, just going back and forth, or even like at the end of A Way Out when you're just holding buttons to do these little punches that would like show flashbacks every time one landed. Like that to me is what this fight was.
They tried to create it equal because how Abby was pinned up and she was very skinny. So they was like, okay, how do we make Ellie weak? Oh, let's let her get stabbed on a goddamn tree.
I was annoyed by that.
Oh, that's something else I wanted to mention. Like how many times was it like they narrow your vision as you're going through a doorway or something like that, and somebody grabs you from the side?
Yeah.
That
happens a
happened
decent
like
amount.
20 times. The 2 times it was different was when you go in between two cars, and then she gets pulled up into the trap at the end and gets stabbed on the log, and there, the biker guys find her. And then at one time when you go onto a workbench, somebody runs up and pulls you off of it. Did that happen
Oh
to you?
yeah.
Yeah, did that happen to you?
I don't know. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if it's
maybe you it's like one of those where you're like working on your guns and they like ambush you while you are at the workbench and a guy like grabs you and pulls you off of it.
Were you playing as Ellie?
Yeah.
Was it like day one in the? Because there's like when you're in the first day as Ellie and you're in that gas station. There's a gas station. There's a workbench there, and I remember like the first time going through working on that workbench and then stopping and then hearing someone talk like as I'm working on it, and they were like away from me, but I was like, oh,
Yeah, no, that
crap, and
wasn't
I
it.
stopped
It was
working.
in like one of the buildings.
Hmm.
And you go through the building, you go through every room and nobody's there, and then you get on the workbench and they all come up and I'm like, okay. But that was one of the only 2 times in this game where that like surprise factor was different.
Maybe that did happen. I just don't remember it because I just have no memory of that happening.
I just thought it was interesting because I'm like mashing circle to get out of the weapons
Yeah.
station because the guy's yelling and charging at me, and I'm like, and she's like trying to put it back together or whatnot.
Yeah. Also, we sort of glossed over it. I guess it was something that talking about upgrades and weapons. The silencer. I loved the silencer. I absolutely always had one. Always was crafting them. Got the upgrade, so it lasted 5 shots instead of 3 as soon as I could. To me, it made the pistol relevant again because by far the worst weapon in the game. In the first one, by far the worst weapon. I never used it. It takes 3 body shots to kill someone. I'm not good enough to shoot someone in the head every time. Never used it. But in this, giving it the silencer, when you're doing stealth and you have a lot more time to aim and try to hit someone in the head, made the pistol so useful. I used it a lot because of that.
Yeah.
It was the same thing like you said. If I had different loadouts, so if I know I'm going to stealth, I brought the silenced pistol, I brought the arrows and the bow, and I brought the trip mines. I'm like, I'm going full out stealth. But if I'm not, then I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the hunting rifle and the shotgun and the revolver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's exactly how it was for me.
But yeah, the silencer on the pistol, unless you really had that reduced sway, even still, it was hard to aim.
It was hard.
But I had to have that silenced pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was easily like the second I saw that, and like the second I used the first time I used it, which was like in that story earlier that I told about it. That was the first time I used it. That was just I was like I shot someone in the face and they don't know where I am. They know that I'm shooting. They know that someone's shooting, but they don't know where I am.
So next we have puzzle solving. Kyle and I talked about puzzle solving before, and I think we both agreed that there was not much.
There was not much. To me, the only puzzle solving aspect in this game was the save combinations. I loved those
Puzzle
so
solving?
much.
They're usually like a piece of paper next to the safe that has the combination right on it.
Not really.
That happened like pretty much with every safe.
Not really. Some would give some were like, hey, this is like to me this is
There was like
I'm
one or
using the
two.
term puzzle in the loosest possible term, but that is incorrect. Because like the first one you encounter is in that store. It's like, hey, the passcode is the day that my good boy won Employee of the Month, and it's like, and I'm like, what is that? And then I'm looking for an Employee of the Month thing, and I find it, and I'm like, okay, which one of these is it? Oh, that's a dog. That's it right there. And then like this ones I can remember. Like one, the safe is next to like one of the checkpoint gates downtown, and it says like the gate, like the passcode to this gate is this safe, but that gate's already been open, so you have to like look at the paper that you found with all the passcodes on.
Right.
There's the one where like the code was like the last 6 digits of someone's phone number, and the phone number was graffitied on the bathroom wall.
Call for a good
Yeah. There's like that door when you're in like the subway that you have to break open the soda machine, grab the soda, and it's on that. Like a lot of these were like pretty like there were some definitely that it just said it on the paper and you had to find the paper. But there were a decent amount that it was like actually in the environment somewhere, and like I said, not necessarily puzzle solving, but I loved that. Especially because in the first game, it was just you had to find the paper, but also in this game, you actually got to put it in yourself, which I love doing that. me, I felt so accomplished when it's like I
It
found a
did feel
passcode.
good,
I did it.
like the clicking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from that, you have like moving platforms.
Yeah, this game had a little bit of platforming to it, just a tiny bit. Specifically, I'm thinking of like Abby's second day when you're trying to like get up to the building as high as you can, and there's all the water, and you're just kind of like jumping between different rocks, trying to climb
Mhm.
up the building. Like like it's not a big thing, but there is like no platforming in the first one at all.
Yeah.
Pretty much, it's just like there's climbing and climbing down,
Yeah.
but this there actually were like you had to jump and run and jump and stuff, and there were jumps that like I jumped and I missed and I died.
Yeah. That
So to
happened.
me, like I just thought like it was for the like it's not in the game a lot, which is good because I didn't. It wasn't like something that I'm like, oh, I want this everywhere I am. But it was just something extra that I was like, okay, yeah, like you're making. It just was a way to make something as simple as traversal a little bit more interesting,
Mhm.
especially like when you're just going up a building. Like you actually have to think about where you're going, or like when you're going kind of the opposite of that when you're going down the hotel. Just you got to think a little bit more than just walk this set path.
Right. One of the puzzle things that I was very impressed with, and they did not do it that much, but the chord physics were really good. Like
Oh, for
The
the
throwing the
generators.
ropes.
generators, ropes,
Generators,
anything like
yeah.
that. The chord physics in
Mm.
general, like they all had like it was a finite length.
Mm-hmm.
You could wrap it around things. I saw this one video where somebody was like, there was a rope hanging down or a cord or something like that, and they had like the hunting rifle with Ellie, and they like moved around the cord, and the cord would stay wrapped around the gun how it was. The cord physics were just very impressive. The difficulty of the puzzles, not so much.
Well,
You know,
I didn't think they were difficult. They were
yeah,
just
no,
fun.
they were fun, but
Yeah.
you want a little, you want to think, a
I
little there.
also like speaking of like detail, this is the first new game I have played like that is new since Spider-Man. Because I just don't play a lot of new games. Because
Mhm.
like I just have such a big back catalog of games that usually I'm in the middle of a game when a game comes out.
Yeah, and there's not been any
Right.
great games since Spider-Man.
Like Red Dead 2, didn't play that one.
Red Dead 2,
But
yeah.
just like with this, it was the first thing of like to me since Spider-Man a game that was just super like focused on realism, and it did it so well to me. Of things of like hair movement was very good.
Backpack movement.
The backpack movement was good. Like even like the zippers on the backpack flopping. Like the first time I played as Ellie and saw her backpack move, I literally would just like wave my right stick back and forth as I'm walking forward just so her backpack would flop because I just thought it was so cool. And then, like when you grab stuff and open shelves, like it takes time. When you grab stuff, she goes to like put it in her backpack and you actually see the backpack like the zipper open, the backpack kind of like shuffle and close. And when you like grab ammo out of guns, the guns don't just disappear. You literally just take the ammo and the gun is still there.
Or the mag.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like that to me was just stuff that I was like, wow, I would not have thought twice if none of that was in there. But the fact that it was, I did. I was like, oh, like wow, that's cool. Everything about this game to me was an improvement over the first.
Mhm.
So the story, I did not like it when I first finished it. I will preface that with I don't like sad endings or ambiguous endings and things. I want a happy ending. I want to know everything's hunky dory. Cool. So I already knew going in that this game was not going to be that, and I knew that I would not like the ending subjectively because of that. Objectively, I think Naughty Dog had their goal. They set out doing it. I think they did it well, but there are certain things I think they could have done better. So to me, which I don't know, Kyle, you might agree with this, because there's a podcast that came out that I would recommend people who are more interested in the kind of inner details of the game. It's the Kind of Funny Games cast with Neil Druckmann, Ashley Johnson, and Troy Baker. Spoiler cast about this game. They talk about everything. Where they kind of confirmed things I had about the game, which was the game is basically about revenge.
Mhm.
That can be said very easily. And to me, there's the before and the after of revenge. When you play as Ellie, you're playing the before, as all she cares about is revenge. She will stop at nothing. She is just, that is it. That is her driving force. And then you play as Abby, who, this is like, initially I didn't like the order of the game, but this kind of made me, like, when I was thought about this, I thought, oh, it makes more sense of, when you play as Abby, she has gotten her revenge. And she's still miserable. Like, it's mentioned that like her and the others like have nightmares about it and how like the others kind of view her differently because of how she tortured Joel, and she's like yeah, I did that, but I'm still miserable. You know, like it really, she got nothing out of it. And to me, like the whole thing with Lev and Yara was kind of like her redemption. Kind of like how Ellie was to Joel in the first game of his redemption. That is what Lev is to Abby. So to me, it's like she's with them. She's like kind of sees like I feel like she kind of reaches that point of like I want to. I feel like maybe it's even though it's not really ever said, it's maybe has something to do with her dad as well, like her dad being a doctor that helped people. I feel like that's kind of what she wanted to do. She wanted to be someone that would help people, and Lev and Yara were her opportunity to do that. And I think especially when she was going with Lev on her own, and he was kind of opening her eyes to how like the Seraphites are different, but they the way that like Lev especially views kind of the overall message of the prophet for the Seraphites. She's like, okay, like they're not all bad. And eventually, like she's like with Ellie, kind of when she beats her at that midpoint fight of the game, and she's gonna kill Dina. Like Lev is what gets her to stop. And to me, I feel like he is kind of the representation of her wanting to do better and be better for him.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because by that point, both her and Lev have lost everything. Everything that they cared about is gone. All of her friends are gone. Yara is gone. They have each other, and that is it. And so I feel like at this point, she just, she wants the two of them to be safe and left alone, and that's all she cares. And then when Ellie decided to go after her, that entire section, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then Ellie got to the beach and found her hanging there. I thought, okay, this is when Ellie's like, man, look at her now. Like, this isn't even, why did I do this? This isn't worth it. And I was like, okay, happened later, but you had that realization. I'm glad. And then Ellie wanted to fight her again, and I was like,
yeah, for
please
no
don't.
reason again.
I was
She's like, I can't let you leave.
Yeah, I was like, please, I don't want to do this, guys. Can we just like literally like I would just stand there like not doing anything because I'm like I don't want to do it. And like, is there like a button to give up because I don't want to do this? And like and it goes with like Ellie basically like Abby starts the game as the bad guy, but really Ellie kind of ends the game as the bad guy because he comes to a point where like she's holding a knife to Lev's throat as he is like unconscious in a boat just to get Abby to fight her. When Abby's like, I don't want to, like, I just want to leave. Just leave me alone, please. I don't want to do this anymore. And so to me, it basically kind of shows that whole like one revenge is never worth it. I think is very much shown with Abby's side of things, of how like she is still miserable until she found something else to fight for, something else to motivate her. And then Ellie is like, her obsession with her vengeance, and you could say the same thing with Abby. Their obsession for vengeance cost both of them pretty much everything. Because Ellie loses Dina, she loses Jesse, she pretty much like loses like her place in Jackson in society. She loses her ability to play guitar, which I really was not happy with that. I felt like that was taking it too far. She loses everything. And Ellie gets nothing out of it because she didn't even kill Abby. But then Abby, she did get what she wanted. But even then, she wasn't happy with it. And she still ended up losing everything because killing Joel is what caused Ellie to come after her, which caused the death of all of her friends and everyone she cared about.
Yeah, but she was gonna leave them for Lev anyway. And it doesn't matter that we killed them. Thank God.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't like Mel. I feel like Owen would have maybe, assuming everyone lived, Owen would have maybe convinced Mel to deal with it, or that he would have absolutely have left Mel behind for Abby.
I didn't like Mel. I didn't like Owen. All right. So anywho, the ending just hurt me because I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all because it feels like they're in there like, what does she do next? Flip a coin. All right, now she's mad again. She wants her revenge. And they're like, all right, she's about to kill her. What does she do? Somebody flip that coin. She lets her go. Ellie's good again. And then it's like, all right, she's at the boat and she remembers Joel.
Well, see, to me, I feel like it's like
she flip flop like 30 times in 5 minutes.
Well, I feel like she's becoming just darker and darker, kind of more like Joel was as this is going on. But then with her like not killing Abby and stuff, I think she finally like one realizes what she's becoming and is like done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I think she actually at that point when like she has that flash of Joel before she like lets Abby go and stuff, I feel like at that point she also realizes why Joel did what he did at the hospital.
I understand.
And understands him a bit more. But then that also is like, well, I don't want to be what he was.
All the things they tried would have landed perfectly with me if Ellie stayed on the farmhouse with me. Sometimes you can't get revenge. You just have to accept life as what it is and be thankful for what you have because she should not have been able to live after going after Abby and
I
killing friends.
do agree with that. I think that part very much, like I said, I was disappointed with where it was, but I was like, okay, I can like this is fine. Like she's got Dina, she's got this kid. They seem happy.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
okay with
not
that.
like happy. You're not happy about what happened, but you're like okay with it. You're like,
That's
I'm okay where this ended up. And then she's like, I have to go. Dina's like, I won't be here when you get back. But of course, but that makes sense to me. Like, why Dina?
oh, I don't blame Dina at
Yeah, I
all.
don't blame Dina. But it just doesn't make sense to me that why Ellie would do that, especially after having a child with Dina. Shouldn't she understand like everything and
Well,
be like, this is my life now?
yeah, it's even like
You know,
playing as Ellie in that section. If you read her journal, you can look back at pages of like kind of her talking about her adventure. Like she mentions like a decent amount how much she misses them, how much she
Mhm.
like wishes she was with them. And I'm like,
Yeah, the whole Santa Barbara section to me was a stretch. It was like Naughty Dog saying, "Hey, let's take I don't know, probably a 13 to 15 hour game and let's stretch it a little bit more." The whole leaving Dina thing, Tommy coming back. I hated when Tommy came back and said, "You owe me." What does he owe her? Or what does she owe him? There nothing.
Mhm.
Nothing.
and it's like if it wasn't for her, you'd be dead.
Yeah. The whole time you were playing through the game's supposed to be about vengeance. Tommy killed so many people that you were supposed to kill. So what vengeance did you get
Mhm.
out of anything? You know what I mean? You were just literally following his footsteps and his scraps. That was it. So I hated Tommy from the beginning. But the whole Santa Barbara thing, I really didn't really care about the story like you guys said, after that. Should have stayed at the farm, should have been it. But I really don't think Naughty Dog wouldn't end a game without having it be like an open ending. Because many games before, that's all they do is open ending. If we want to go back to it, we're going to go back to it, and this is how we're going to do it. So they can start a new thing.
See, to me, I thought initially when I thought she was going to Santa Barbara and we saw Abby get captured and then Ellie got in the trap, I thought, oh man, Ellie's going to be captured by these people and the two of them are going to have to work together to escape. And
I
that's when
thought
they'll
so
let by.
too.
Like, I was like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with her leaving Dina. Dina will be there when we get back. I'm absolutely okay with this. And then that isn't what happened. And like I said, she found her on the beach, and I thought, okay, now she's like, man, look at how pathetic this person is. I can't believe I threw away everything I had for this person. I want to go
Right.
back and get my family back. Still not then, So that to me was like, upsetting. And then,
I did love the silenced SMG you get.
Oh, that is
oh,
cool.
that was nice.
Oh yeah, I mean like so like let's make our final points about the story here before you
Mhm.
talk about the trophies and Easter
Yeah,
eggs and
whatever.
whatnot. I did my probably my favorite part about the story was the factions, specifically the Seraphites and then the bikers at the end. Were
The Rattlers.
this Rattlers?
Rattlers.
Rattlers. Okay, they were super interesting. How they had like these traps set up, and then they had the zombies chained up in their place, and it was very interesting. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to like learn more
Yeah, to
about
me,
that.
it was like there was such an interesting group that I was like, first off, I was like, man, you're introducing the third faction here, guys. This is getting crazy. And then they were just so nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, because that's once again, I thought Ellie being taken prisoner, you would learn about them,
Mhm.
but you really don't.
You
It's
really
just,
don't you don't learn too much about any of the groups. You learn like
I think you learn a lot about the WLF and the Seraphites when you're playing as Abby. When you're playing as Ellie, no. But Abby, I think to me that is also a portion of Abby's section, like why it exists, is to teach you about both. Because Lev teaches Abby a lot about the Seraphites, and I thought all of that was very interesting.
Yeah. I hate the
Yeah.
Seraphites a lot less after you go to their island and see how they live and you hear
And
that
then,
story.
yeah, and then like when the wolves attack their island, just everything's on fire. I was like, well, they didn't deserve this, guys. Like they're just trying to live. Like, what are we doing here?
I did like the difference in combat, like how they would whistle and be quiet
Oh, I
and
thought that
stuff
was
like
The
that.
awesome.
whistling
Their
was
whistling was so cool.
terrifying.
I also loved how when Lev was with you and you encountered them and they whistled, he would translate. Like one of them let out like literally like with subtitles on it says like alert whistle, and he's like, they know we're here. Because like it just to me it was like so interesting. Like the first time you encounter the Seraphites is Ellie, and there was just all that whistling. Then you get shot, and then they're just whistling to each other. I was like, oh man, these people like they whistle like these people are hardcore.
Mhm.
Yeah, no. My only other big issue I had with the story was the fact that the end of the first game ends with Joel lying to Ellie about the hospital. I expected the second game would very much be about that, and it really wasn't. It was basically just reverted to flashbacks. The one thing that made me more, I guess, okay with the way it went was I was like, I wanted that moment of like Ellie finding out and then them kind of reconciling, whatever. But then I realized they never did reconcile. Ellie never Ellie didn't get that satisfaction because that last point when Ellie's talking to Joel on his porch, that is literally the first conversation the two of them had since Ellie found out about the hospital. Like when Ellie said we're done, she was serious for 2 years. They did not talk. And then I'm going through now on my second playthrough to get collectibles. At the beginning when Ellie tells Dina that she was thinking of inviting Joel to watch movies, that's a big deal. Because literally yesterday was the first time she was wanting to move past it. So that to me made me more forgiving of that because I'm like, okay, I didn't get that satisfaction, but you know what? Neither did Ellie, so okay. And I think that's also one of the reasons that Joel's death haunts her so much is because they never did really reconcile after that.
Something we forgot to mention that I wanted to briefly talk about was Abby's vertigo.
Oh, that was really cool.
Mhm.
Anytime you would look down as Abby, the distance would lengthen and she would start shivering and the controller would start vibrating a bit.
So do you want to give your final thoughts on the story or gameplay or anything?
I can't say too much about hating the game because I'm such a hardcore fan of the series. Like we said, combat, other than hand-to-hand combat, loved it.
Mm.
Other than that. Story, here and there, the story did suck, but because I love the characters, I can't hate the story too much. I wanted to ask you guys, at the end of the game, I guess you'd call it an epilogue. At the end of the epilogue, when she finds all her stuff in the house, in that one room, in her art room, and she plays the guitar for a minute, has the flashback of her and Joel trying to figure things out, and then leaves. Where do you guys think she's headed?
I don't know. To me, there's two options. She's either going to Jackson to try to get Dana to take her back, or she's just like, yeah, I wasted my shot at happiness here. I don't deserve it, and she's going off. For the sake of, I want there to be at least some happiness, I think she's going back to Jackson. For the sake of, is there a potential third game? She's not. Which, if there was a third game here, I would want it to focus on Abby and Lev. I honestly don't think I would even want Ellie in it.
I agree with that actually. I kind of felt like the second game, like this game, I kind of felt like this game would have been better if it was just Abby and Lev. Because that was and it was about the wolves and the Seraphites, and it was just doing this whole thing.
Mhm.
And it was just about the ex Firefly. Not like they went after Joel and involved Ellie and Joel in this, but
Yeah, that whole
showed
thing.
what happened to them. Their story was very interesting.
I wouldn't be too mad if the third game is 20 years later and everybody's reconciled and everything, and you are JJ. And you got a grown up Ellie and a grown up Dina.
Well, they're already grown up.
Well, I mean,
older.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we talk about the sex scene? That kind of controversy there?
It was gross. Unnecessary.
I'll say, first off, there is that controversy that Neil Druckmann put himself in the mocap suit just so he could creepily touch Laura Bailey or something.
Right.
I don't believe that for an instant because one, Laura Bailey did say it's not true. Two,
don't just believe everything you fucking hear. I mean, Jesus. It
also
this
even
is so weird.
Even when I first heard about it, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I was like, who would say that?
Yeah. I don't know. Because even Laura Bailey, when she tweeted out, she's like, "I can't believe I have to say this out loud," but it didn't happen.
Anywho, the sex scene to me, it was unnecessary, and it should not have been on the screen for as long as it was because there was a sex scene earlier that they cut away from, and this one was just ugly. I mean, it's two characters I didn't like. I was just like, ew, please.
To me, it is the standard sex scene you would see in sort of a romance movie sort of thing. Not
I need to watch more movies.
No, I'm saying I've seen this exact type of sex scene before in movies.
Right.
It is nothing special. I think it's just the fact that it's in a video game is why people have issues with it. But to me, to me, it's always been a thing in America where sex is just such a big deal. It's not in other countries, but it is in this. And I think especially being that a majority of the people who played this game were American, I think that's why it was a big controversy. I think it's just a big culture difference because even Neil Druckmann was saying that when they pitched this game to Sony, they had all this stuff in it, pretty much planned out. They mentioned the sex scene, they mentioned all the gore and stuff, and they were worried about Sony pushing back against that stuff. And he said the first comment they got was Sony was like, "Yeah, okay, so that scene with the two girls smoking weed, do they need to do that? Because that's kind of a weed's kind of a deal here, you know."
Yeah.
That was the thing that they were hesitant about. Not all the violence, not the sex, not anything. It was literally just two girls smoking weed.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's my favorite scene.
And so I was
They
like,
roll up and it's somebody's or that dude's weed farm in the basement, and he just has the bottle of joints, and they can't open it, and I was like, just throw it on the ground, and Dina goes, and I was like, awesome.
yeah, I didn't think it was a big deal. But once again, just knowing the audience of the game and the fact that it is a video game showing what is a very realistic sex scene.
Yeah, like I said, my biggest problem with it wasn't that like it was awkward and cringy and weird. My biggest problem with it was like you cut the earlier one. So if you already set precedent of how we're gonna deal with sex scenes in this game, don't change it because this one has a dick in it. You know what I mean?
I can see that. I can see that.
I just did like I was offended by that. I was like, this is unnecessary.
I also thought even that with like before I had seen the scene with the whole like nudity aspect was there is an entire scene, like an extended conversation where Ellie is not wearing a shirt and you don't see anything.
Exactly.
Even
Yes,
like-
that happens multiple times where they play with the camera angles. Ellie's facing away, all things like that. And I'm like, all right, yeah, so we're going to be clever about this, not show anything. And then Abby's just like, bam, here they are. I'm like, why?
Yeah, I didn't overall like, especially I guess after what I had thought from hearing so many people talk about it. One of the things I heard was about how long it was. People were like, "Oh, it was so long," but I was like, when I get to that scene, when I can tell, I'm going to time it and see how long it was. It was like 30 seconds. And I was like, "Wow, that's it."
Was it really only 30 seconds?
From the moment they start making out to the moment it cuts away, it was 30 seconds.
That's crazy.
Not exact. But
In my head, it was like 6.5 minutes. You know? I'm like,
yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, because when I first heard about like all these controversies, I had just started the game, so I didn't want spoilers. So I had our mom look it up and tell me about it without spoiling it. And she said like people were like, oh, like people had issues that it didn't affect the plot and it was too long. And I was like, oh man, too long. How long is this thing? Like when I got to the point where I was like, oh, this is it. This is when it's happening. I was like, I'm going to time it. But that to me was it. Not a big deal. So moving on from that, the trophies in this game. Kyle, are you trying to get the platinum in this game? Because I know you're playing through New Game Plus.
Yeah, I'm playing New Game Plus. I want to get all of the cards. I don't know if I want to get all the coins. They don't intrigue me as much.
Well, if you get a guide, it would take
cards
that
are
long.
cool.
Oh, the cards are
The
awesome.
cards are-
I do
Yeah,
love the cards.
I
We
love
didn't
the
talk about
cards.
that. Cards are awesome. Yeah, I didn't see. I agree with that the coins aren't as interesting, but like I just have a guide. Just use a guide. Like it's not like I'm spending hours combing over every section trying to find these coins.
Right.
It's just a guide. I will say this trophy list is very simple. It's basically beat the game, get all the collectibles, get all the upgrades. You done it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. There's nothing else to it. There are no difficulty-related trophies in this game like there were in the first, which is a really good thing because this game is a lot harder than the first one. I beat the first game on Grounded twice, Grounded Plus, and in the first game you can stealth through pretty much like almost every encounter. You don't actually have to fight a lot. In this game, there was not a single encounter that I successfully stealthed my way through the entire thing.
Yeah, same.
And I honestly don't think I could. I just don't. I legitimately I don't even think it's possible because the AI a lot of times they move in groups a lot more, so you can't take them out silently as easily, and they notice like their paths intersect a lot more. So they would so the odds of someone finding a body are a lot higher. So it was just I just don't know if I could even beat this game on Survivor. Especially they take away your ability to listen and stuff. I don't think I could do it.
I did miss, like in the previous game, how you had all the different difficulties was a trophy. This one, it's beat the game. That's it.
Yeah.
Just beat the game.
And there's not any difficulty ones at all.
Other than that,
There isn't even one for beating it on New Game Plus.
No.
There isn't even that.
like you said, it's just collectibles and upgrades. Which after my first playthrough, I was like, I think 40% done with trophies. So New Game Plus, it's not going to be hard to get platinum.
Oh yeah.
It really isn't.
Yeah. There aren't, the game being so new, and I'm not the most eagle-eyed of person, so I don't find Easter eggs as much as other people, so I'm sure there are a lot that we don't know about as of yet. But there were a few that I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I noticed, when you get to the hospital in LA, as Ellie, there's this girl playing a Vita with headphones, which I just recently bought a Vita, so I was just like, oh, cool, it's a Vita. And she's playing Hotline Miami, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And it was so cool, and then you kill her, and it's just on the ground there in a level playing the music, and you can listen to the music, and it's literally my favorite song on the soundtrack of that game. And I just sat there for like 10 minutes just listening to it because I just love that song so much, and I just thought that was very cool. And then you encounter her later as Abby playing that game before she dies. Twice. There's also, as Ellie, you end up in an arcade, and you find both The Turning, which is the arcade game from the first one and from Left Behind with like Angel Knives, I think is the character's name. You also find Jack X Combat Racing, a former Naughty Dog game. There are also 2 collectibles that specifically you get trophies for just finding them, which is there's like an old ring you find as Ellie in a safety deposit box. I believe that is a reference to Uncharted.
It is. It's the ring that Nathan Drake has, the Sic Parvis Magna ring.
Yeah.
It's that one.
Yeah. So that is, Uncharted reference. And then as Abby, you find the Relic of the Sages, which is a reference to Jak and Daxter. That's all I got in terms of Easter eggs, but they're all really cool. Like, it's, to me, any Easter egg, as simple as it is always so fun when I find it. Just because I'm not good at finding Easter eggs.
I did find that because, like in the last one, you had many Uncharted and Jak and Daxter Easter eggs. Uh-huh. This one's the same way. You have a PS3 in Ellie's room that has Jak and Daxter and Uncharted 2. And then
you find a lot of PS3s in this game.
Yes. And then you have, like in Left Behind, I think it's in another game. I forget which game it is. But in Left Behind, the skeleton head, Skelesaur or something, you find that one in part 2.
You also, you mentioned this when we talked about the game previously, but you find all these PS3s, and you pointed out there aren't PS4s because in the game, like the game both was released and takes place before the PS4 came out, so they would not exist. And that was something that I was like, I didn't even think about that detail, but that is completely true.
Yep.
And I was completely on board with that. I don't think there's anything else necessarily that we have to talk about this game. I feel like we talked about it a decent amount.
Yeah, no, all in all, I would say the gameplay is fantastic. It takes everything that was great from the first one and builds on that. The hand-to-hand combat still needs some work. I feel like it's the same way when I play Uncharted. The hand-to-hand combat looks cool, but it just feels a little clunky. They need some sort of overhaul on that. Other than that, the gameplay was fantastic. Stealth was fun. Fighting was fun. I had a lot of fun playing through the whole game. I almost never wanted to put it down, even though I thought the story was not good.
Like I said, I think everything was an improvement on the first game, with the exception of the story. But even then, I don't personally like the story, but I know what Naughty Dog was trying to do with the story, and they absolutely know what they were trying to do. So I absolutely give them props for that. I would give this game a 9 out of 10, whereas to me the first was a 10. Still, great game.
Yeah, like I was telling you guys, the first game to me is a 10 out of 10. Best game I've ever played in my life. I can't find another game that I loved. This game, combat-wise, graphics-wise, and how they improved it, to me, is what really made this game. Story is everybody's own opinion on the story.
Well, what's your opinion on the story?
I love the story until you get to Santa Barbara. That's where they get me. Because then you lose fingers, you really don't kill Abby, and then you lose everything. But other than that, I love these characters still. I loved going back. My first day that I got it, I played 13 hours straight and still didn't want to put it down, but I was dead tired. So yeah.
Is that your single longest gaming session?
It has to be. 13 hours has to be. But yeah, I'd 8 out of 10.
Yeah, so guys, if you go ahead and rate and subscribe if you want to hear more. Tell us if you like our show, or tell us if you don't, and tell us why. Tell your friends and your enemies about the podcast, and we'll see you guys next game. You don't have to say bye if you don't want to.
Fuck off.